Our city, Salem, the seat of the capital of Oregon, has a vision to be an ever more vibrant community. In line with that plan, the Salem City Council set specific goals. The goals addressed economic development, general fund stability, transportation connectivity, public safety, and affordable housing, among others. However, as the United States and the world's economy turned upside down, the city's budget and funding tightened considerably. So when the opportunity to have University of Oregon students and their professors working on those council goals for Salem's future, the city jumped at the chance.
It means several things to me because it was underway when I became mayor, and so it meant a great deal to me in terms of the organization that people had already done ahead of time, and I realized it was going to be a wonderful opportunity. Well, I think it helped us to realize what a really encompassing term sustainability is, and I think it helped us to realize how many ways the City of Salem can really move forward in its mission to be a more sustainable city.
It's a program that the University of Oregon runs, so they developed it and run it. And they take students from a number of different disciplines and have them work on real city issues. And Salem is the second city that they've done this with. And it's been a really wonderful opportunity to have all of these different disciplines working together on some of our projects that we want to move forward with.
In May 2011, the City of Salem and the University of Oregon came together to celebrate the 2010-2011 Sustainable Cities Initiative.
As we move forward with these projects, we will not just affect life to our city borders, we will affect the Mid-Willamette Valley in so many positive ways.
Our studio took a field trip to San Francisco, and we visited, in a whirlwind 48-hour period, we visited probably a dozen or more sites that we were able to research in depth and do some case studies on and think about what best practices we could bring back from those sites to the City of Salem. And we made two recommendations. One group diverged along a path of creating a grand boulevard scheme for the Liberty commercial area. So really looking at sort of more grand, almost like Parisian style tree-lined boulevard for that area. And then another group went in the direction of making some recommendations for an incremental growth plan. So looking at phased development, block by block.
Some of the major findings that we came up with were increasing affordable housing in the area, both to match that need for affordable housing in Salem as a whole, and also to bring more housing to the North Downtown area that there's a demand for. We also wanted to create a vibrant destination in the area, and we thought a good way to do that could be to create a market district along the Willamette River. We also looked at creating sustainable transportation options in the area, and one proposal that we made was to take advantage of the proposed extension of the West Side Express service into the area, the commuter rail, and create a multimodal hub in the area.
One of the first things that we found in speaking to the variety of people we spoke to, and then really digging into the historical and cultural context, is that it is important to understand and acknowledge the diversity within the Latino community themselves. They're coming from different states. Here you primarily have people coming from Michoacan, Oaxaca, Jalisco, and then there are also there's different waves of immigrants too coming in the area as well, and they're involved in different things. So the barriers to the diverse group within the community will be different, and therefore the approaches will, in order to get that group to participate, are also going to need to be diverse as well.
As I was arriving today, I realized that Salem's over 150 years old now, and it may come as a surprise to some of you to realize you're now half as old as St. Petersburg, Russia. And the city of Salem is actually the size of well-known European cities. So it's not strange to hear that students looked at the scale and pattern of urbanization of a place like Paris. And the scale coming down Broadway here actually is the scale of a boulevard. And we should no longer think of ourselves as a young country with young cities that are always growing outward. So much of this project having to do with sustainability is to take the assets we have and build on them. To take the buildings that have historic value, or maybe a recovered island in the Willamette River, and say, what can this contribute to future generations? It's not something that we're going to use and dispose of.
I realized it was going to be a wonderful opportunity for us to look at different opportunities around the city and different things within the City of Salem structure, and maybe find some new or improved ways of doing some of the things we do, like communicating with minorities, or else some of the new projects that we'd like to do, like along the riverfront, for instance. Salem is such a fortunate city because of our location in the state, because of our connection to the state of Oregon, our connection to the ocean, which is only, you know, a little bit over an hour away. We have the mountains close at hand. And all of those physical characteristics, I think, enhance what Salem is and what Salem can be.
When we saw the opportunity for the Sustainable Cities Initiative, we jumped on that immediately because nothing could be better than to have a university of willing college students and professors help us with these projects. So it meant to us that we were again able to move forward in our projects. I think they came up with just wonderfully creative ideas, probably things that, given our limited resources and limited time, we may not have come up with at all. So for me, it just was like having a second huge team of analysts working on a number of projects for the city.
Having the big house on the edge of an urban area doesn't work for a lot of people today. Some people want that and will have that. For many people, they want to be in a more vital, lively place. They want to live in a community where there's more variety of the kinds of people around them in terms of their national background, ethnicity, and race, and coming from different parts of the economy. And the police station, the North Downtown project, and some of the affordable housing projects all focus around this idea of having the city re-energized and revitalized. And we see that as a theme both in Gresham and Salem, and now again in Springfield. In fact, the three communities we've worked with, none of them are affluent. All of them see sustainability within a larger picture of sort of economic development and urban revitalization, and that's great, makes sense to us. The criteria, the chief criteria though, and the reason Salem was selected was it had a very impressive set of projects around sustainability. They covered a wide variety of topics, so one like industrial ecology to wayfinding and transportation to parks. And the city was committed to the effort in a really big way.
The experience is invaluable for the students. I mean, it's basically dropping them into a real-world situation where they are interacting with the parties that would be involved in any large civic project. They get to ask the questions, they get to meet the people, and they get to think about the project in a very real way.
Just to get practice thinking about what I learned and really reinforcing what I learned in the classroom there, but also bringing back what I learned from citizens, from city staff into the classroom and making what I had to say in class or what I wrote about in my research more relevant to what's actually happening on the ground. And I felt that the Salem city staff helped that a lot. Just by being there the first day we were all there, we had people, we had Courtney Knox, we had people from transportation, we had citizens even there. So having them really involved throughout the process meant a lot and helped me learn, and I think it was really a win-win situation.
The riverfront urban renewal boundaries are really broader than just the downtown core. I think there's some confusion that people think that that's really all that we have for the riverfront urban renewal area, and basically it goes all the way up to Hood and includes some of the new developments that have happened on Broadway, Broadway Commons, Broadway Town Square. And so there's that area up where the Keith Brown sites are, that's sort of an industrial area right now, and it was just a natural when we were selected by the University of Oregon Sustainable Cities Initiative as a city to work with them that we asked them to explore the North Downtown area in conjunction with the Downtown Strategic Action Plan. So that's really how the genesis of how my projects started. We already had the plan tied into Vision 2020, and now we had some additional resources to help us look at one of the investment areas of the Downtown Strategic Action Plan, which is the North Waterfront area. So it was very exciting because we had architectural students and we had some public management students, policy management planners that worked on different projects in the North area. And basically what we asked them to do was look at the area between the Union Street Railroad Bridge up to where Mill Creek runs into the Willamette River. We shared with them the challenges that we understood were there, the railroad that goes along Front Street, the zoning, the traffic circulation, and again the existing uses, which again some of them are for sale, some of them are sort of ripe for some kind of adaptive reuse. And so we sort of sent them off, gave them lots of information about that area, and then we had an opportunity to go down and start looking at the kind of concepts that they were coming up with. We were asking them for a 30 to 40 year visioning of that area.
The idea was to reconnect the city and the citizens with their very important waterways. You have Mill Creek and you have the Willamette River. Being that Salem is one of 3 major cities in Oregon, the 3 largest cities in Oregon, they're all along the Willamette River. We all thought it was an important idea to incorporate the river and Mill Creek into our designs.
I was a first year and we took 3 different classes together and we worked on the downtown riverfront project where we were rehabilitating the whole site, thinking about sidewalk connectivity and bike lanes and better transit down there and really rehabbing the entire waterfront area. So as a student it was really incredible to get out there. Our first day of classes they brought us up to Salem and we just walked the site and Salem staff came out and we really just got a feel of what the area was like. As
part of Nico Larco's Terminal Architecture Studio, we worked on the North Downtown Waterfront development, which started at Union all the way up to Mill Creek and a little bit further, and from the river all the way over to Broadway. And we started the studio working on urban design for the first 5 weeks. The idea was to find a narrative for the city, something that fits Salem. So we looked at the 2020 vision. We looked at surveys that were done by citizens, and we took those ideas and we kind of crossed them over with the ideas and the tenets of sustainability. And we found a lot of connections. We did a Liberty Square, which was a central downtown plaza where people could gather. We did the idea of having an interpretive nature center, the idea of more mobility, bike paths, things like that. So we actually created a living laboratory boardwalk that took you all the way up Liberty Street through Liberty Plaza, along Mill Creek, back down the river, to kind of help reconnect the city with its waterways.
So what we ended up with was 5 urban design concepts in 12 projects. And the real beauty of working with the students was, they identified our natural attributes and amenities that we take for granted. They connected us with Mill Creek and Willamette River. They looked at the railroad bridge. They looked at all of our green space, Marion Park, Riverfront Park. Again, they were just fabulous in really highlighting and focusing on some natural resources that we have that we probably took for granted. And so the projects sort of reflect their research. And we had 2 brew pubs that were designed right at the end of the Union Street Railroad Bridge, which would have been, I could see that would be just awesome. So you come off the railroad bridge and you have a couple of options where you could stop and eat. We had several projects that included housing of different types, for sale, affordable, rental. We had a new YMCA that was placed right along the river, beautiful concept. We also had a railroad museum as a concept, but talk about taking advantage of what we have. It was, again, on the Willamette River, but it was on the railroad. And because we have that railroad track that sort of runs down the middle of Front Street, I thought that was pretty, I thought it was genius to just go with what you have. We had 2 sort of river aquarium research, and what's behind me is one of them. And again, this one was designed to be built right on the confluence of Mill Creek and the Willamette River. And they took advantage of that location as sort of You know, how many times are you going to have a creek and a river tied to each other in a location like that? So the design concept builds on that. So there's a tower so that you can look at the natural resources, and there's classroom space and research space and wet labs and auditoriums. And again, it was really fun because, you know, they did not just the design concepts, but this particular student actually took the time to research the changes of the water before the dam, after the dam, the heights of the water. And so again, you know, lots of work, and we would go down and they would be, you know, sort of the first visit was they were encouraged just to think about textures and colors. So I would see all these sort of, you know, photos and different materials that they were sort of getting their inspiration as they were doing technical research, and then we would go and they would start taking that and building their concepts, and then they were encouraged to do actual models. It was a great opportunity for me. I know it was supposed to be an opportunity for them to work with us, but I think it went both ways. Their enthusiasm was just contagious, and we walked away with a different appreciation of our jobs and working in this beautiful city.
The police moved into the bottom floor of the Civic Center in about 1972, and the size of the force has almost doubled since then. It's grown along with the population. So over that time, they've been slowly making use of every square inch that they can and packing into that space, and eventually they've had to send some of their functions off-site because it's just too small. So that part of the need has been growing over time. In 2005, we did a seismic study of the building, and that showed that it was deficient for the types of earthquakes that we try to plan for now, as opposed to 1972 when the building was built. And that really puts some urgency on the need, that because the police are key first responders in that type of situation, that we need to get them into a seismically adequate facility. So since then, it's definitely ratcheted up in terms of priority. So the best thing about working with the students from the U of O was they brought a much different perspective to the project than a typical engineering type project. They brought a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, and they were looking at things from different ways than from folks who had more experience in the field. So some of the things they thought about were unique, and some things were a little bit off base, but it all added up to be something that gave us a lot more diverse look into the project. The seismic concern applies to the entire facility, but the way building code is written, facilities that house like police and fire actually have higher standards. So to meet the standards for a police facility, it's definitely substandard. It's not so bad for the rest of the functions at City Hall. But your point is exactly correct. We want everybody to be safe, and ideally that building would be usable after an earthquake, and that's certainly not the case now. You know, we had 40 students involved, and that brought a diversity of views about every aspect of the project, really, from, you know, how it works on the site to what you might do with the interiors.
I represent 40 students from 2 different studios, an interior and an architecture component, and hundreds of hours worth of work. But I'd like to begin with what the Civic Center was and where it started. At the time, the existing City Hall was overcrowded, it was old architecturally, and people wanted to move forward, which is very similar to where we are right now. At the time, it was a very big deal. There was a lot of neighborhoods vying to get it in their area. A lot of people wanted this. And as you can see from the images, it was a very important event for the city. But now we're here, and not much is happening. The architecture's still there, but the people aren't. And so we were asked to come in and not only look at the police station and their situation, but also the Civic Center as a whole. And so we began this process of meeting with many departments. It was a great experience for us to actually get out and see what real clients need rather than these hypothetical projects that we normally deal with. And so this is the site as it is right now that was handed to us by ZGF Architects and CB2. There were 3 sites that were outlined. Site A, first off, you can see here's the City Hall and the library. The first site at the north was Site A, directly north of the City Hall and facing the pond. Then there was Site B, which is more integrated into the existing City Hall, and then Site C that was in between the Salem Civic Center and the library. We were also asked to, if we were moving Peace Plaza or to change the pond, to keep those alive somehow because they're important to the community.
The way the project would eventually be funded is through a bond measure that would be sent to the voters for approval, and City Council will make a decision about when is the right time to, well, one, if they want to go forward with the project, and two, when the right time to do that is. So right now we're assessing feasibility, we're refining costs and making sure that the Civic Center site is the site that we want to go with. And I'd say we're probably a minimum of 2 years away from that bond measure. But again, it kind of depends on other factors, is not just the work we're doing, but is it the right time? Economically, does it make sense? Is it the right priority? And that kind of thing. So all that goes into the decision. It's the sort of the big picture things that we learned was, one, it really is feasible to site a new police facility on the existing Civic Center campus. And before we undertook this project with U of O, really the thoughts had always been to move off-site. So that was one key thing that we learned. Another was really that the existing Civic Center, although it's 40 years old and seismically deficient, has a lot of value still remaining in it, and there's some things we can do to take advantage of that, especially if the police move out, making some space available. We may be able to move some departments that are off-site back in and really kind of transform the entire campus as part of the project. So again, that was certainly different thinking for me. I'm relatively new here at the city, but I hadn't really thought about how you could transform that area. It always just seemed like something you'd probably want to knock down and start over, but really there's potential to, for much less investment, really make big changes.
Orchard Village was a 30-unit public housing project that was built in 1970. It was demolished in 2008. It had physical needs, and the cost to repair it was in excess of the underlying value, and so the Housing Authority worked with the Department of Housing and Urban Development to demolish that site. What we did get, though, in return for the demolition was 30 rental vouchers to make sure that the 30 households that lived in that property had the ability to secure private market housing that was subsidized as well. After we demolished Orchard Village, we cleaned the site, and right now it's a clean, developable site of about 2.78 acres. It's proximate to the intersection of River Road and Broadway in Northeast Salem. The city and SHA jointly entered into an agreement with the Sustainable Cities Initiative at the University of Oregon. The Orchard Village project was our primary project as a housing authority. What we engaged University of Oregon to do is to provide redevelopment analysis for Orchard Village to create a vision and a housing types and housing masses and then site designs. So basically pre-development kinds of visioning, conceptual work, design work to give the housing authority some ideas about what we might do with that property going forward. We clearly have had the interest in redeveloping that property from the very beginning. And so this has helped to get us on the path moving forward to have some ideas. We have 5,500 individuals on our waiting list right now. I should say not individuals, households. And there is quite a bit of market housing in Salem that's affordable, but in some cases that housing is at a level of repair that might not be of the highest quality. And so our commitment, of course, would be to produce quality, affordable housing that has long-term affordability and long-term subsidized rents for our low and moderate income clients. There's a huge need. We see in the trends that in Salem there's a fairly large low-income population, and we see that that's a population that's probably going to continue to grow. We want to be prepared and be available as a resource to help folks find housing. We envisioned a mixed-use housing community. We envisioned that the concepts would be built on long-term sustainability, sustainability in the natural environment, sustainability of building materials, and sustainability as it relates to the connections with the community. What we also wanted was to have a development that was flexible, that it was adaptable and scalable. Flexible in the sense of meeting the needs of a range of different households. Scalable in that we could increase density or decrease density depending upon the nature of the community needs. So housing types that you could bundle together, you could assemble and disassemble without reinventing your entire development. It might take many years to get it financed, but we've got a great start with the work from the Sustainable Cities Initiative. Great products, great vision, and we're really excited to build on that and continue to move forward. You know, I'm a huge fan of education, and I love the academic environment, in particular the college environment, where you have, you know, passion and ideas and everything's possible. And so I really enjoyed the interaction with the students, and their enthusiasm is contagious. And I'm hoping that through the work that they've passed on to us, that we can maintain that contagion and pass it on and keep that same enthusiasm. I loved that. I loved the discussions about what we could do, about what elements make good communities, how we put together different pieces of the puzzle. Real estate development inherently is a puzzle with all these moving parts. And so for me, I guess I liked it all. For the short answer,